It's another day, left jab, right jab, this is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim, looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting, if you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go, I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show, this the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What's going on, guys? UFC Vegas 19. We got Curtis Blaydes taking on Derrick Lewis. Excellent stylistic matchup here. I think we all know, what to expect with these two guys. Curtis Blaydes going to try to drag Lewis into the deep waters, see if he could work the ground and pound and whatnot. That's a hard task to do on Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis has proven, even with times with his cardio not looking that good, he'll continuously be in the fight. He'll be trying to get back up to his feet, looking for that big knockout punch. So excited to see how that big heavyweight clash goes down this weekend. Other than that, we got 15 fights on the card as of right now. Of course, we do know things will most likely change during the rest of the week here and leading up to fight day. As we've seen recently, things have been crazy with these fight cards. But as of now, we got a lot of fights to talk about and a lot of fights to look forward to seeing, get put together here. Crossing our fingers that they happen. All right. So we'll get into this fight card here in a minute. I know a lot of you guys like me to do a little bit of a recap. We had UFC 258 Usman versus Burns, which the main event was crazy. We'll get to that in a second. We'll start at the bottom. We'll work our way up. As far as betting goes, it could have been a better night for me. We'll get into that here in a second. I had had a nice hit, but a couple other ones I wasn't crazy about. A lot of fights that were scrapped. As you guys know, initially I had 4 plays locked in. A lot of fights were falling apart, but Gabe Green takes out Philip Rowe. That was an entertaining fight. Gabe Green brings the fight. That was good to see. Chris Gutierrez takes out Andrei Ewell. Looked very good, man. Even though he took that fight on short notice, Chris Gutierrez showed once again that his striking is legit. That was one of the fights that I was kind of kicking myself at. I should have made that an official play, and I did hesitate on that. That's one of those ones you look back at, and, as the fight's going on, you should have had some big money on, in my opinion. I had a little bit of money on it, but I'm talking about those big official plays there. I did not pull the trigger. Polyana Viana takes out Mallory Martin. I had a play on Mallory Martin here, a small play, but I was surprised. Polyana Viana has now been showing up and proven that she's more than just a looker. This girl is legit. Mallory Martin, I'm taking a big step back on her. After the slow start in her last fight and then this performance here, she should have known to avoid that ground game there. And I would have liked to see that fight play out a little bit longer where Mallory was more sweaty. I think she would have taken over this fight in the later rounds, but she dropped the ball there. Belal Muhammad looks very good against Diego Lima, just pushes the pace. Like I told you guys, he's like a Khabib on the feet. This guy's pace is ridiculous. Anthony Hernandez takes out Rodolfo Vieira. How about that? One of the biggest upsets of the year. I'm sure that spoiled a lot of your guys' parlay. Sorry to hear that for you guys. I wanted nothing to do with that fight. Vieira, I did have some questions of his cardio. He's so muscle-bound and whatnot. But I did think that he would go in there and get takedowns and, pull off like an arm triangle or something on Anthony Hernandez. But Anthony Hernandez ends up pulling off the submission on Vieira. Crazy, man. The game is crazy. Julian Marquez takes out Maki Pitolo in the 3rd round. He was down 2 rounds at the time. He needed a finish. How about the corner work from James Krause? James Krause, in my opinion, is one of the best in the game right now. I had a little post on that on my Instagram. I really believe James Krause is one of the best cornermen in the game, let alone coaches. Ricky Simone takes out my arch nemesis, Brian Kelleher. Some of you guys were doing Kelleher dirty. I saw you guys DMing Kelleher with me in it, just roasting him. I felt bad, man. I don't know. I really couldn't be a part of that. I ain't going to hop in there and say nothing. I ain't going to kick a man while he's down. So, Ricky Simone looked good, though. Kelvin Gastelum, this was the biggest play for me on the night. Kelvin Gastelum, I felt very good about this fight and played out exactly like I thought it would. Kelvin Gastelum would just be the better fighter everywhere this fight went with the grappling, especially with the striking, being more fluid on the feet. So that was a nice moneymaker there. Alexa Grasso This was another play that I'm kicking myself that I didn't make an official play. I did pick Alexey Grasso to win the fight. Not a lot of people did. Should have made that an official play. I knew she was going to be, just the better striker in there and just have a little edge on the feet. Macy Barber kind of starts off slow. She throws a lot of power shots, but she's susceptible to being tagged up. Grasso's really putting it together right now, and I had a feeling she was going to be able to stuff those takedowns. Should have jumped on it. I did not. Then we had my last play here. I had a small play. I did take a dog shot on Gilbert Burns. For me, it is what it is. I don't mind those types of plays. Got it at great odds, right in the plus 200 range and plus 230 or whatever it was. And you know what? He almost got the finish in the first round. A lot of people were talking about, Usman, how can you pick against him? And this was an easy call. And Usman, hey, when this fight kicked off in the first round, when Usman was on chicken legs there for a second, in hindsight, it's always 20/20, but I get it. Usman is legit. I want to give props to Usman. He's amazing. The jab looked amazing. He is the best welterweight fighter in the world. But, the fight game's crazy, man. The fight game's crazy. And Burns did have him rocked there, wobbling him a little bit. And a couple shots were tagging him. But Usman has a hell of a chin. And you got hats off to both those guys, two of the best welterweight fighters in the world. I still do believe that Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman are the two best welterweights in the world. I would love to see that fight ran back. Not exactly sure why no one's talking about that. That was the best welterweight fight I think I've ever seen. So Usman is the man there. So that wraps up the card. And with no further ado, let's take a look over at this upcoming weekend's card. All right, so as we get into the first fight of the card, I do want to say this. I do feel that this card is a very good card to make money on. You could feel one way or another about, a card going into it. Of course, you got to see how it plays out to say whether it was a good card or not. But just going into this card, on paper, I do see some golden opportunities here. That's how I feel, at least going into it. So, stick with me here. Let's see how this card goes. I think this is going to be a real hitter here. And, of course, you guys know if you want to work with me on my plays. If you guys are interested in my pricing, reach out to me, MMAfortuneteller@gmail.com. Shoot me a DM on MMAfortuneteller_ on Instagram. Or, comment here. Just letting you guys know that first and foremost. And, let's get into the first fight of the card. We got Rafael Alves taking on Pat Sabatini, who's taking this fight on about 8 days' notice. So, taking this fight on short notice. And Pat also did have a pretty bad injury not too long ago. Rafael Alves is a guy I've seen fight in person over at Titan FC. This is a guy that's made his appearance on Dana White's Contender Series. Looked really good there. Looked to be in phenomenal shape going into that fight. Got the finish. And, works with MMA Masters and whatnot. And you guys know I'm very high in MMA Masters. I think that they're one of the best gyms doing it right now. And we'll be getting into what MMA Masters has going on here in a little bit. As you guys know, we got a big fight to talk about later. A guy we had on the show, in Chavez. So we'll talk about him too. But MMA Masters is legit. Rafael Alves is extremely well-rounded. This guy can strike, good jiu-jitsu. He'll definitely go in there. He'll pull the sub off. He's in phenomenal shape. And, he's coming into this fight right around a minus 190. This guy has a lot of potential. Like I said, extremely well-rounded. Throws, some big power shots, and he can finish you in a variety of ways. And overall, I really like what he brings to the table. I mean, that's what I'll say about him. Pat, on the other hand, Pat is also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So is Alves. So both these guys, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. Pat has a good wrestling pedigree, a strong grappler. And this was the injury I was talking about. Excuse me for the quality of it. Couldn't really get a good one here, but he did have a major injury there, as you see. So something just to take into consideration. He has had damage in the arm. Shouldn't be too much of an issue here. I think, if anything, more of the fact that he's taking this fight on 8 days' notice. Maybe keep an eye on the cardio. But Pat seems to be a very professional dude, and a guy that should be ready to go. And again, keep an eye on his grappling game as well. Training over there, Renzo Gracie Philly, so he's affiliated with them. Renzo Gracie up in Philadelphia, and he is a black belt. That is a legit feather to have in your cap. Overall, though, I think Rafael Alves is just the more well-rounded fighter that's really hitting his groove right now. 19-9. I don't necessarily think that record is even indicative of what he brings to the table. I think right now he's really hitting his prime. 30 years old, and I think that this is a guy that's going to give a lot of guys some trouble here. Minus 190. maybe the line is somewhat high for the fact that, Pat is a legit fighter. Pat has some good power in his hands as well. He's a decent striker as well, and he's a legit fighter. So you got some X factors. You got Pat taking the fight on short notice. You got a stylistic clash here, but I'm going to go with Rafael Alves. I like him to win this fight, and I think that, we should keep an eye on him moving forward. Let's see how far he can push it. All right, in the next fight, we got the heavyweights throwing down. We got Sergey Spivak taking on Jared Vanderaa. Jared, obviously, he just made quick work of his last opponent over on Dana White's Contender Series, was able to get the fight down to the ground and showed he had some nasty ground and pound. I don't necessarily think he'll be able to do that to Sergey Spivak. Sergey Spivak has shown to be quite the strong grappler himself. I think he'll be able to keep the fight standing, or if anything, maybe I see Sergey even mixing in a takedown here or there, maybe in the later rounds. Sergey Spivak, the polar bear. I've talked about how I love that nickname. I think the polar bear, maybe the most ferocious animal, most underrated animal in the animal kingdom. Some people pointed out that the elephant may be the most underrated animal, right? Maybe the elephant is on a one-on-one fight basis. But nevertheless, man, Sergey Spivak, of course, he had a tough start to his UFC career. Got thrown in there with some killers. Walt Harris did finish him. And then, of course, Marcin Tybura pulled the upset as well. And I believe he also lost. Let me run this back real quick on him. Also lost to... No, that was it, yeah. So it was just the Walt Harris was the big knockout in his debut. And then the Marcin Tybura loss. But Tybura's really been putting it together. Tybura... is an underrated fighter in my opinion. And then the Carlos Felipe fight, Carlos has been showing he's a dangerous striker. He was able to grind him out in that fight and really display his grappling skills. Jared Vanderaa is a guy that's more of a grappler from what I've seen from him. He hasn't really looked too impressive on the feet, but does carry a little bit of power here. I like Sergey to win this fight. I just think that Sergey's ceiling's a little bit higher, in my opinion. It's going to be a little bit of the lighter opponent. I think that his cardio will come in the later rounds. I think that he'll have a slight edge there, potentially. And as far as the line goes, minus 230, that's a line that, if it's, where the value is on the dog or taking Spivak at a minus 230, maybe there's more potential value as taking Jared as a dog here at plus 175. These are two big boys that are going to be throwing down. You never know what's going to happen in there in these types of fights. Jared is a guy that rose to the occasion on DWCS. But overall, I do think that Sergey is the better fighter. I think that Sergey's striking will be a little bit more polished as well, and I like Sergey Spivak to win the fight there. And Sergey Spivak, the polar bear. This is a guy that I do believe has some real potential here. So we'll see what Jared can do in this fight if he could rise to the occasion. All right, dropping way down to the bantamweight division, we got Aman Zahabi taking on Draco Rodriguez. Aman Zahabi, of course, the brother of Firas Zahabi. Firas, one of the best coaches in the game. When Aman was making his UFC debut, he had a lot of hype behind him. Of course, when you step in there with the last name Zahabi, people are going to pay attention. Zahabi, the coach of George St. Pierre, the best welterweight fighter to ever do it. Let's make that clear right now. Usman has a little bit more to prove, in my opinion, before we're talking about him as surpassing GSP. And, there's some killers in the welterweight division. Let's just talk about that for a second. The welterweight division is stacked, and there's some guys that are moving through the ranks, and I think it'll all come full circle, or it will come back around to Khamzat Chimaev. So that's a guy that I've been chirping about, for some time. I know some people think that it's too early, with his career, and they don't really believe in the hype as of now, but give it some time. I know he had to pull out of that fight against Leon Edwards. I don't really think Leon Edwards is it, in my opinion. I think he needs to get in there, get active again, and we'll see where he's at, but I don't think he's the guy to take out Usman. I think it's a guy like Chimaev who's going to come around, but I'm just chirping here. let's get back to this fight. Aman Zahabi is a guy that, really, I'm going to say there's some red flags in this guy. I think he has really good fighter IQ, but when you lose to Vince Morales the way that he did, just showed that his striking is pretty slow, doesn't have a lot of speed in his hands. And, that's a red flag in my opinion. Like I said, the fighter IQ is there. He definitely knows what he's doing. He has the capabilities as far as the mental game goes. I'm not really too sure about his physical skill set, though, about the skills that he steps in there with, compared to guys like Draco Rodriguez, who, he's going in there, he's getting finishes left and right. He's quick on the feet, he's aggressive, he has submission skills, nasty submission skills. Zahabi does have a nice BJJ game as well, but very impressed with Draco's submission against the dude he fought on Dana White's Contender Series. He was able to pull that triangle off, and really that entire fight, he looked good in that fight. He was the aggressor, and you could tell this guy goes in there looking for the finish. I gotta like the name too, Draco. I like that first name, man. Only 24 years old. This guy, in my opinion, has a higher ceiling than Aman Zahabi. Zahabi, 33 years old. I'm not too high on him. So, Draco's going to have a 1.5 inch reach advantage in this fight as well. And I'm going to say Draco goes out here and he gets the job done. He's going into this fight almost a 2-1 favorite. Zahabi, you can get him right around plus 165. If you feel that maybe he has a little bit more, maybe he's more mature with his age and the guys that he's brushed shoulders with, maybe he can go in there and pull out something slick. But I think that Draco is just the more athletic, more aggressive, quicker fighter. And again, Vince Morales is a guy, decent boxing, but I was never too high on him. And the way that fight played out kind of showcased what Zahabi brings to the table, in my opinion. So unless, it's been some time since he's been out the game, maybe he sharpens some things up and he comes back to the table and he looks a little bit more impressive. But I'm not going to hold my breath for that, or I'm not going to bank on that. So I got Draco. All right. In the featherweight division, we got Chaz Skelly taking on Jamal Emmers. This is a solid fight. Chaz Skelly's been around the game forever. If you guys want to watch a very exciting fight that's very quick, so it won't take too much of your time, you might want to pull this fight up right here. This was Maximo Blanco. If you guys remember him, he used to train over in Japan, I believe, the Venezuelan fighter. That was a fight. I don't know if you could pull it up here. Yeah, he's got the anaconda choke. He ran out in that fight. He did the Sparta kick. They both ran at each other, and it was just absolute action from the moment the bell rung, and he ended up hurting him a little bit and then got the anaconda choke. That was an awesome fight. Without a doubt, Chaz Skelly's most impressive performance of his career. Chaz Skelly is the Scrapper, is a very fitting name. Chaz Skelly, he has a good submission game. He's rangy in there. He's not the most athletic or polished striker, obviously. He doesn't have a very athletic type of striking, skill set. He's kind of awkward in there, but he has great cardio. He's extremely tough. He can take a shot. And he's 35 years old. I mean, he's getting towards the end of his career. This is a big fight for him. Jamal Emmers, on the other hand, Jamal Emmers is a guy that had a lot of hype. If you guys remember, he was going into that Dana White's Contender Series fight against Julian Rosa, who we'll be talking about here in a minute too. He was going into that fight as a hefty favorite. Rosa pulled off the upset on him, and that was a big deal. But look at what Emmers did after taking that loss, man. He went back to the drawing board, and strung off a bunch of victories in a row after that. And even got a UFC victory in his last fight against Vince Cochero. I believe that was his first UFC victory. He lost to Giga Chikazi. Giga is one of the most talented fighters in the division, so don't look too much into that. Emmers is very talented. I like Emmers' boxing. I like his jab. I like his range. He's going to have only a half-inch reach here, so Skelly has a nice range as well, but Emmers should have the more crisp, technical boxing. I think Skelly's going to have to go out there and make this a crazy fight. I think he's going to have to try to catch him with something wild. I think he should run out there and do that charging kick like he did against Blanco, because I think if they just sit here and they scrap it out for 15 minutes, I think Emmers will be the more talented, skilled fighter, and he'll pull off the decision. And that's what I most likely see happening here. I think Emmers is probably going to win a decision, but Emmers is a solid fighter, so keep an eye on him. Maybe he wins this fight. Maybe Julian Rosa wins his fight later on. Maybe we get a rematch. I don't know if that's something they want to do, but that was a good fight the first time around. And of course, anytime Juicy J fights, it's a good fight. But we'll be talking about him here in a minute too. But yeah, I got to go Emmers and minus 230. That's not really the lowest of lines either. Chaz Skelly is a very capable opponent. Maybe Skelly can hurt him with something or use the grappling. Try to make this a grappling affair. You pull off some type of submission move, steal a round or two. We'll see how that plays out, but I got to say Emmers is the more skilled fighter here. All right. The beginning of this card is not, the best. Stick with me here because some of these fights towards the top of the card are pretty good, so excited about that. So really starting with the next fight. So we got Shayna Dobson here taking on Casey O'Neill, who's making her UFC debut. Shayna Dobson is coming off a very, very big win against Maria Agapova, who had a lot of hype going into that fight. Maria basically gassed out in that fight when Shayna Dobson was able to weather the storm. Really showed to be very poised in there and very mature with her overall game, and was able to work some ground and pound, and she got the finish there. So shout out to Dobson. Her record is only 4-4, but this is a girl that's been being groomed in the UFC, right? I mean, almost all of her professional fights are in the UFC. 31 years old. I do think that she's a tough chick, and she can go out there and she has proven she can pull off the upset on anybody. So I don't see why she couldn't go in there and pull off the upset on Casey O'Neill. On the other hand, though, Casey O'Neill, undefeated. I do expect Casey to have a little bit of better striking. I think that her striking it looks pretty decent when you pull the tape up on her. I know she gets some good training in with Tiger Muay Thai and whatnot. So, bearing nothing crazy happens, if Casey can keep this fight on the feet, I think that's her path to victory, and I think that's the most likely scenario. I think Shayna Dobson's going to have to make this a dogfight, mix things up, and mix in some takedowns. I would like to see Dobson try to mix in some takedowns and maybe try to exploit Casey on the mat. Not saying that she has major holes there or anything, but maybe that's an avenue that Dobson should look to go. And Casey coming off a nice victory there against Christina Stelio, the Greek fighter. So I'm familiar with that chick as well. I was rooting for Christina. And Casey O'Neill is a tough chick, man. Tough Scottish girl. Only 23 years old. Has a lot of hype. Coming in right around minus 170. Be careful. Be careful taking these types of fights. A flyweight bout between a girl and Shayna Dobson, who has shown, she can go in there and she can pull off the upset when she's like a plus 400 underdog. So, she could definitely show up here. I do believe that. But overall, I do like Casey O'Neill. I think Casey O'Neill should rise to the occasion on the feet, but be careful betting this fight. Be careful. Julian Juicy J. Rosa taking on Nate Landwehr. This is a fight that I'm excited for. This is a fight I'm very excited for. Stylistically, mark my words, I think this has potential fight of the night capabilities, man. Julia Rosa is a guy, people sleep on him time and time again. He rises to the occasion. We talked about the Jamal Emmers victory that he pulled off on DWCS. How about the big fight against Sean Woodson, where he was a big time underdog. And again, he brings the fight, man. He puts himself in a position where even if he's a big underdog, his fights are so wild and so entertaining that anything could happen in there. People are getting dropped. He's taking shots. He's going for subs. He's extremely well-rounded. If you guys remember him, he was on The Ultimate Fighter way back in the day, back in like 2010, I would say, back in my college days. Juicy J, very athletic dude. He switches stances, very unorthodox on the feet. Keeps his hands very low, so he is susceptible to being tagged up there, but his hands are quick. He's only 31 years old, so that shows you how young he was back when he was on the Ultimate Fighter show. Strung off 2 victories here in a row now after taking out Sean Woodson. This is a big moment for him. He's only a minus 120. He's taking on Nate Landwehr. Nate Landwehr is a guy, coming off that big victory against Darren Elkins. That was a bloodbath, and much respect to Nate for coming through as an official play for me there. That was an official play. I was very excited for the money that it brought back, but I wasn't overall that impressed with him, to be quite honest with you. I think that his hand speed is quite slow. I think that he's tough. He's decently polished with the wrestling and the grappling. He's a strong grappler, strong wrestler. He can stuff takedowns, and this and that, but he's just kind of slow in there. I expect Julian Rosa to be quicker on the feet, more unorthodox, and I expect him to win the stand-up exchanges. Also, in that fight against Elkins, he kind of slowed down in the 3rd round. I think that Elkins was there to be tagged even more so, and he was a little bit hesitant, almost like he was pacing himself. So I'm curious to how the gas tank looks. I think that Julian Rosa has a better gas tank. And like I said, Julian Rosa has an overall arsenal. Pull off nasty submissions on you. He's tricky with the striking. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some type of weird head kick, something, sucks him in. And, he's doing some, maybe he's boxing him up and then he sucks him in, gets the hands low with the leg kick, maybe brings up a head kick, knocks him out. I think this fight's going to be a grueling brawl, and I think it could be an exciting fight. Julian Rosa will have a 4-inch reach. So, he has the reach advantage going for him with the footwork as well. He's 6'1", so the legs are longer as well. He could use the leg kicks. I like Julian Rosa here. I do like Rosa. Nate Landwehr, a lot of people thought he lost that fight against Elkins. I didn't think he lost. I didn't think he lost the fight, but I understand, what you guys are getting at. Before that, he got knocked out by Herbert Burns. That was a fight he was looking decent in the beginning and then got tagged up. So I like Juicy J here. The line, it's almost a pick'em fight. Take a look at the live line right now. We got Julian Rosa. Yeah, line hasn't moved much. So, it's basically a pick'em. I like Julian Rosa in that fight. What do you guys think? Comment below, man. We got any Nate the Train fans out there? Let me know. Eddie Wineland taking on John Castañeda. John Castañeda, a tough, sexy, tough Mexican fighter who's coming off a loss. That was a loss against Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood, I think his nickname is the Prospect, but one of the top prospects in the game. I am very high on the abilities that Nathaniel Wood brings to the table. So that was a tough going for John Castañeda. Don't put him under the microscope too much there. Eddie Wineland, excuse me for the quality of this picture, but shout out to Eddie Wineland. This guy was, a WEC champion way back in the day. I've been watching him forever. Now he's all tatted up. This guy is a legend. I've seen him fight live. A true knockout artist, man. He brings the fight, whether he's knocking you out or getting knocked out. It's great to see him still in the game, throwing down. And I like this matchup for him here in the sense that, he's been in there with some real killers. Sean O'Malley, of course, knocked him out in a devastating way. Before that, he did take out Popov in that fight, got the knockout himself. Like I said, he brings the fight, lost to Alejandro Turbo Perez and John Dodson before that, and then took out Takeya Mazuguki, who, not the biggest feather in your cap, but still, Eddie Wineland can strike with the best of them, has power in his hands. We take a look at the frame here. These guys are virtually, they are identical. Castañeda is the fresher fighter, 29 years old, more in the prime of his career, in my opinion. And I think that, it'd be tough to argue that, as he's creeping up to 30, and you got Eddie Wineland, who's almost 37 years old, coming off probably the worst knockout loss of his career. So you got some things going against him in that sense there. Take a look at some of the victories that Castañeda has. If you want to take a look at the strength of schedule there, took out Marcelo Rojo, a 15-5 fighter. Not a lot of notable names here when you look through it, to be quite honest. But the finishes, you got to respect the finishes. Chris Beal, if you guys remember Chris Beal, he was on The Ultimate Fighter on Team Ronda Rousey. A knockout artist in his own right, so he went out there and knocked him out. That's something you can keep an eye on there. But yeah, I'm gonna have to side with him to win this fight, as much as I want to pull for Eddie, just for the fact of I'm telling you, he's more in his prime. He's the fresher fighter. I think he'll be able to take a shot better than Eddie will be able to take a shot here. I could see Eddie Wineland getting wobbled, getting hurt. After taking that knockout he did against Sean O'Malley, you have to wonder where the chin's at. And I'll be rooting for Eddie Wineland, but I got to take Castañeda there. All right. We got Drakkar Klose taking on Luis Pena. Pena taking this fight on short notice. Violent Bob Ross. He's been known to be seen jogging around the hood over here. A couple of my buddies, we seen him jogging around. Bumped into him at a BKFC, I told you guys. So he's down here in South Florida. Good wrestler. Has a good wrestling background. Coming off The Ultimate Fighter. I know he spent a lot of time with AKA as well. So he's been out with AKA. He's polished himself up with some of the best camps in the world, but this is a guy that's just kind of dropped the ball. I wouldn't say consistently, but he's dropped the ball time and time that has kind of set his career back. This is a guy that's, really could be in a much better position right now. He's coming off a loss against Kama Worthy. That was a fight that it was tied up going into the third round. In my opinion, he kind of gassed out because he was trying to get the fight back down to the mat, and he got caught with that submission. He was getting tired. He was exerting a lot of energy against the cage and couldn't get that takedown. Before that, he took out Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia, not the biggest feather in your cap there, but Matt Frivola, that was a fight he probably should have won. It was very close. But again, he let that fight fall out of his fingertips in the third round there, and took out Matt Wyman. So not a lot of big names in his resume. If he's able to go out there and take out Drakkar Klose, that's a fighter, and that's a fight that I would really respect. If he can go out there and handle business here. Here's the thing, though. Drakkar Klose is a guy that's very underrated, in my opinion. This is a guy that is a nasty striker, has nasty power in his hands, a great calf kick, can go out there and completely take your leg out. He'll hold you against the cage. He'll stifle you for a decision. He's coming off a loss against Beneil Dariush, who is now shown to be one of the best fighters in the division. He hurt Beneil Dariush in the beginning of that fight before getting hit himself. I think he got hit with the spinning back fist or something crazy, but it was a wild fight, if you guys remember that. Drakkar Klose is legit, 32 years old, the boyfriend or the husband of Courtney Casey, UFC fighter as well. I like what Drakkar brings to the table. I think this guy, he steps in there and he'll give you a run for your money if you have money on him. So yeah, I like Drakkar here. The line is right around, says what, minus 155 on Tapology. Let's see what kind of, we've had a lot of movement. That's what I thought. Minus 190. Minus 205, which is much more of an accurate line there. And so actually it is dropping the other way. So it opened at minus 225 if you were able to, if you were grabbing Pena, it would benefit you there more in that sense. But so the money is coming on Pena. So that's an error on Tapology here, saying that he's at minus 155. You show me the book that has him at minus 155. But nevertheless, Drakkar Klose should be the favorite in this fight, and should be, in my opinion, he should be a favorite right around a minus 190 range. I think that's a pretty accurate line there, minus 180, 190. Pena is a capable opponent. He's a tricky southpaw. He can keep this fight close on the feet. And he does bring the fight as well. He'll fight for your money. I just think that Klose will be stronger in the clinch. I think that he'll have more power in his hands. I could see him hurting Pena on the feet. That's more likely than me seeing Pena hurt close on the feet. Pena has more of a volume type of striking style, so he'll try to, put it on you with the front teep kicks and, working the range strikes with his boxing. Not a lot of power in his hands. I like Klose there. I like Klose to win the fight. And there's Violent Bob Ross wrestling back in the day. Yeah, so he's been a wrestler, but training that top team. Surrounded with some of the best fighters in the world. There's no question about that. And speaking of wrestling, this is the guy right here, man. The American Top Team wrestling coach. This guy is he's a legit wrestling coach, one of the best in the game. I believe he was an Olympic alternate or an Olympic, maybe an Olympic wrestler. I think he might have medaled. I forget. Name slipping my mind as well, man. Trying to remember all these names on the spot, but you guys know what I'm talking about. One of my best friends' little brother did a lot of wrestling training with him as well over there at Top Team. So look who it is. We'll be talking about this fight coming up soon. Piotr Yan taking on Aljo. Can't wait to break that fight down. But yes, Drakkar Klose is going to be the pick here. I think he should go out there and he should pull this fight off. We got Danny Chavez taking on Jared Flash Gordon. This is an excellent match on the card. I talked about this fight a little bit earlier in the breakdown video. Danny Chavez also training at an MMA Masters, who had a spectacular UFC debut, where he was really able to put a whooping on TJ Brown. He was able to stuff the takedowns. And that was a fight that I was actually a little bit nervous that Danny Chavez wouldn't have the takedown defense ability. There was a lot of rumors that with COVID and everything, he wasn't able to train his wrestling. I thought TJ Brown was going to be able to take him down in that fight. TJ Brown being a pretty solid wrestler, that was not the case. Danny Chavez showed to have great hips, great takedown takedown defense abilities. And, in my opinion, I think that Jared Gordon's path to victory here is mixing in some takedowns and some clinch work, because I think Danny Chavez is gonna be the better striker here. I think Danny Chavez will be working in the calf kicks. And if you ask Danny, I had Danny on the show, as far as all this hype with the calf kicks and whatnot, Danny Chavez says that the calf kick really started at MMA Masters. So, I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot me. But that's supposedly what the real deal is. And, if you watch the way that he works the calf kick, you might believe it. So, excellent calf kicks, excellent striking, power in his hands. I think he'll be the more technical, crisp striker here. Jared Gordon is a guy that will eat shots, though. He'll keep coming, has a hell of a chin. And, this guy really gives you a run for your money. Extremely tough. You guys know the deal with him and his issues that he's had in the past with being an ex-addict, but getting his life together. So much props to Jared Gordon. Nothing but respect to him. This is a fighter that, he's coming off of a victory against Chris Fishgold. That was a fight that he was able to use his grappling a lot in that fight, and he was able to win the fight there. We've seen him hurt as of recently too. Charles Oliveira got the finish on him. The Joaquim Silva fight was a nasty fight for him. I think that was the fight that he got his arm almost stretched behind his back and smashed up, hammer fist from the side. Took out Dan Moret. Lost to Diego Ferreira. I think maybe it was the Ferreira fight that I'm thinking of that happened actually. So he lost to 2 Brazilians in a row, but 2 tough fighters. I like Danny Chavez here. The line is close too, so if you like Chavez, you can get him at a decent line. I'm sure there's a lot of you guys that are on Gordon though, with his toughness and whatnot, but I like Chavez. I think Chavez keeps this fight on the feet where he will be the better striker. That's the path to victory. I think he stuffs the takedowns. Danny Chavez wants to be a triple weight champion. Like I said, I had him on the show. We talked about it. He wants to be a 3-weight champion. He knows that's his path as far as being. He wants to be known as a great in his own right, and he thinks he could do that because he could fight at he can make all those 3 different weights, which would be, if I remember correctly, was lightweight, featherweight, and maybe it was bantamweight, or I don't think it was. Maybe it was welterweight. I forget, but you got to love that type of talk. So. It kind of reminds me of Brandon Vera calling shots way back in the day. Speaking of that, if you catch me on Instagram, I do now do a weekly post, a fighter of the week. I'll pick a random fighter from the past or the present, and I'm going to just talk about them for a little bit. And Brandon Vera was the fighter that started things off. But I remember when Brandon Vera was talking about how he was going to be a 2-weight champion. I know he never did it. I know he ended up leaving the UFC and whatnot as well, but still doing his thing over at 1FC. But the point I'm making is you got to admire these fighters that have that type of spirit and mentality. That's what it's all about, I'm telling you. And that's what Danny Chavez brings to the table. This guy's a winner, and I like him here. I'm telling you guys. This was a funny video if you want to watch a funny video. I don't know if The Sopranos or something, if this was a sponsored ad or whatever. But, I met Jared Gordon, too, at a Titan FC event. It was pretty cool. I was filling up a beer. Obviously he wasn't, he was probably getting a Coca-Cola or something. I don't think he drinks, but he's an awesome dude, cool dude. And, and his boy is also fighting on this card. We'll be talking about that fight here in a second as well. We got Andrei Arlovski taking on Tom Aspinall. Andrei Arlovski, it's only fitting that he takes on Tom Aspinall right now, right? Andrei Arlovski's been going in there, taking on these young, hungry lions one after another, and spoiling the party a lot of times too, right? We saw him just spoil the party for Tanner Boser. That was a major fight for Tanner. Felipe Lin spoiled the party for him. Even going back further than these last 5 fights. So he's been doing that. He's adapted his style to avoid a lot of crazy striking. He doesn't want to eat any shots. He's good with his footwork. And it's paid dividends for him. He's 42 years old. He's been avoiding getting knocked out as of recently. And it's going to be tough to avoid it here. Tom Aspinall has looked to be a absolute sledgehammer. Went in there, took out Alan Boudout. Before that, knocked out Jake Collier. And people were all poking fun, me included, of Jake Collier's size, of course, going into that fight. But Jake Collier didn't look that bad in his last fight. So, the stock rose with that finish there. Tom Aspinall, they say he's the modern day Frank Mir, as far as his looks, not quite his fighting style, but 78-inch reach. He's gonna have a 1-inch reach advantage here. He's a little bit of the bigger guy. I don't think that Andrei Arlovski is going to be able to work his magic here, in my opinion. Like I said, I know he's been been doing that as of recently, being tricky on the feet and stealing these decisions. Tom Aspinall is a beast here and is a beast. And I think that he goes out there and I think he gets the knockout. I think we see Andrei Arlovski get finished here. If you guys remember, we were seeing that quite often back in the day. Andrei Arlovski was having some problems, never in Strikeforce, and even in the UFC, he got knocked out a couple times. Has cleaned that up. But, this guy Aspinall is just no joke. And it's only a matter of time. I think that's why he's got that tattoo. It's just a matter of time if you're in there with him before you're going to sleep. And I kind of just made that up, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, definitely taking Aspinall. But take a look at the line here. Let's take a look at the live line. You can get Aspinall right around minus 245, as high as minus 275. It's a little tricky. Like I said, Arlovski can be the magician in there, and he could steal a decision and take some money out of your pocket. But I'm not banking on that. I think Aspinall gets the knockout. Maybe you check the prop on that as well for a finish, because if he doesn't get a finish, things may play out closely. So maybe you like Aspinall getting a finish in the first or within the first or second rounds, and keep an eye on that. All right. We got a middleweight bout here. This was a fight that was supposed to happen not too long ago. It got reset up. Nassourdine Imavov taking on Phil Hawes. I did just break down this fight. I'm going to break it down really quick for you guys again. It was cool. We got to see these guys weigh in against each other, so we saw their statures next to each other. Imavov is the bigger dude here. I like the size that Imavov brings into this fight. Goes by the nickname, the Russian Sniper. I like it. Very accurate with his strikes. Very accurate with his jab in particular. Good boxing. He showed to be very well-rounded as well, because stuff to take down, this and that. Phil Hawes, he has a wrestling background. Obviously, he has nasty knockout power. This was a guy that was hyped up, going into the Ultimate Fighter a long time ago, even on Dana White's Contender Series, and he had some major setbacks. Julian Marquez had one of the nastiest knockouts you've ever seen against Phil Hawes, and just had a nasty finish again this past weekend. Phil Hawes has cleaned things up, and he's been pulling off victory after victory. Got a knockout over in Bellator against Michael Wilcox. Fought over in Brave a little bit, and then the Contender Series where he finally got that nice big knockout, and then also followed it up with a big knockout against Jacob Malkoun, the training partner of Robert Whittaker. Phil Hawes can go in there. He can knock anybody out. If he connects, he will knock you out. I just think that I don't know. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think that the Russian Sniper is poised on the feet, has good defense. I think he'll avoid that big shot, and I think that he'll make this a fight that lasts for a while, where he'll be a little bit more accurate. He'll put the volume on Hawes, and I could actually see him getting Hawes tired and actually connecting with the late knockout himself, or winning by decision. So, I like Imavov here. Seeing them side by side, seeing the size difference, and, seeing the skills that he brought into his last fight. I think this guy's a legit fighter. We saw him against Jordan Williams. He was the dog initially, and then a lot of money came in on him that week, and we saw why. And, I like the Russian Sniper here, only 24 years old, about to be 25. His skills are going to really start to shine, I think. And, Phil Hawes, training with Hard Knocks 365, great camp. You got Imavov with the MMA Factory. And these guys have been brushing shoulders with some really good partners and whatnot, but I like Imavov here. I do like Imavov. And as far as the line goes, it's pretty much a pick 'em. So if you do like one fighter over the other, you don't have to pay, a bad line. So if you're feeling something, you might want to go for it either way. I'm sure there's some people that are high in Phil Hawes here. Phil Hawes looks spectacular with that knockout, but I'll take the guy that looks a little bit better start to finish and has more of a resume, more minutes, more rounds in there in the UFC and whatnot. Phil Hawes, okay, he better get that knockout early. Otherwise, let's see how he looks in the later rounds. We got Alexey, the Boa Constrictor, Oleinik taking on Chris Daukaus. You guys know him, very high in the Daukaus brothers. I've had Kyle on the show. Chris Daukaus is a guy I've been shouting about for quite some time. Getting him at crazy dog odds. How about against Rodrigo Nascimento? Grabbed him around like a plus 250, whatever it was. Made big money on him that night. I was jumping off the tables over here, off the penny bar. I was doing backflips like Justin Gaethje. So that was an exciting win there for me. Chris Daukaus has some really, really underrated and really talented boxing. This guy is crisp with the strikes. Also has a nasty jiu-jitsu game that not a lot of you guys know about. The Daukaus brothers are sick with the grappling. Daukaus has been, I think he started actually, if I remember correctly, they started off with their jiu-jitsu. So, but very well-rounded fighters. And, Alexey Oleinik, obviously he can pull off all types of unorthodox submissions in there. He's been around the block forever. Dropped the ball against Derrick Lewis. I thought that was a fight he could have won if he would have held position a little bit more and wore Lewis out. But Lewis is a beast, and we'll be talking about him here in a second. You see Oleinik training with Santos there. It's funny that, Santos was fighting at middleweight and light heavyweight. Meanwhile, look, Oleinik's a heavyweight, but who's the bigger man? You tell me. Interesting. But Oleinik's up there in age. He's not coming in there looking like this. He was a very skinny young boy. I had him on the show. He was actually like the second episode I had MMA Live Discussion. It was a pleasure to speak with him. But this is a guy that's been around the game for a long time. I just don't think that he's going to be able to pull one of those tricky submissions on a guy like Daukaus. Like I said, Daukaus has good submission skills. So, on the feet, I think Daukaus hurts Oleinik and probably gets a finish, if anything. This is a really big fight for Chris Daukaus. He's going to start making his way into the top of the division. So, I do like Chris Daukaus to pull off the victory. I want to pull up the live line here. Chris Daukaus right around a -170, -180. Which I do believe, it was much higher. It's been dropping down. So you can get it at 160 right now, I believe. Or maybe it went back to 170. But either way, if you like Daukaus, keep an eye on the line. Be patient on that line. Because it might get better and better. But if you see it start to go back the other way, then maybe you want to jump on it. So yeah, Chris Daukaus is definitely the pick there. Darrick Minner taking on Charles Rosa. Very excited for this fight. I also had Darrick Minner on the show as well. This is a guy, it was great chatting with him. And, Darrick Minner is a guy that's been training with James Krause and all those boys over there. So, says disorderly conduct, but he's really over there at Glory MMA Fitness. And James Krause, one of the best coaches in the game. Darrick Minner has talked to me a lot about how it makes a big difference having him in his corner. And Darrick Minner is a guy that's really been underrated, in my opinion, for the sheer fact, he has some losses on his resume, but they're against solid opponents. You look at the Grant Dawson loss as of recently. That was in his fight before his last. Went in there, took out TJ Laramie. TJ Laramie has a lot of hype behind him. He went out there and he pulled off the finish with the guillotine. He does have a nasty guillotine. He also had Dawson in that guillotine. He can go out there. He can submit anybody. Charles Rosa is very talented on the mat as well, so it's going to be hard to go out there and do that to him. Charles Rosa, very talented in his own right as well. Coming off that split decision victory against Aguilar. That was a close match. Lost to Bryce Mitchell. Got styled on. But we all know that Bryce Mitchell is the real deal. Charles Rosa was the guy I was talking about. That's Gordon's boy. I know they're boys. They hang out around the way and whatnot, and nothing but respect for both them. But I like the dog here. I think there's more value on Minner. I'm gonna say Minner shows up here and he takes this fight. And as far as the line goes, I definitely feel that there's more value on Minner than a -175 on Rosa. I'll pull up the live line, but -190 on Rosa. I think that line's very high, if you ask me. I think Minner can hold his own on the feet. I think that this fight has all the makings to be a very closely contested matchup. Two well-rounded fighters that have a lot of weapons in their arsenal. And, we'll see how this fight takes place. We'll have to see how it plays out. But as far as looking at it from the line standpoint, I think the line's high in Rosa. I think that's a little bit overhyped, or it's a high line. So that's how I feel about it. And I'm rooting for Minner. This is a cool video. I think that's Rosa's dad jumping in the frozen lake, which I think they do every year. Rosa's a cool dude. All right, we're at the co-main event. We got Ketlen Vieira taking on Yana Kunitskaya. And Ketlen Vieira, a girl that if she didn't lose to Irene Aldana, her hype would be, forget about it right now. But she did get knocked out by Irene Aldana and made a mistake there. And Aldana does have some nasty power. She got caught. Bounced back with the victory against Sarge in her last fight, which is a fight she really had to go out there and win. She showed up. And she has all the skills. Ketlen can strike. She has a good jiu-jitsu game. Solid frame on her. Yana is a girl. Yana's been in some big fights since signing with the UFC, right? Lost to Cyborg in her, I believe that was her debut. And, was fighting at the featherweight division. Now she's back at the bantamweight division where she should be. Took out Lena Landsberg. Took out Marion Renaud. Lost to Aspinall, who that's a fight you want there, but no, Aspinall's decent. And then also had another victory in her last fight against Jolie. Not really a big name in the game, but Yana is a girl. She goes into some of these fights and she can nullify her opponent's game and she can hold them against the cage. She can eke out decisions. She's decent on the feet with her striking. I think she's the wife of Thiago Santos. Speaking of Santos, this guy's popping up all in my video here. But it's always great to have a partner that's also an MMA fighter. I really believe that, especially one of the ones that's one of the best fighters in the world. And Thiago Santos, I think that does pay dividends. She comes in great shape, and she can go in there. She could take anybody out. I do believe she has the potential to take out Ketlen Vieira. I do believe that Ketlen Vieira is the slightly better fighter here, though. I think she's a little bit more polished up when she puts it together. I think she'll be the better striker. And that's why I'm going to edge Vieira to win this fight. Not exactly sure why this is the co-main event as of right now, if I'm being honest with you guys. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about it too much. But I think that Vieira will have the edge with the striking. I think Vieira should be able to stuff the takedowns or work off the cage if Yana tries to hold her there. And that's why I'm going to edge her. I'm going to take her to win the fight here. As far as the line goes, what do we got? Yeah, Yana is a pretty big dog, plus 225. I think that's a little bit hefty, but I do get it. Vieira is a girl that does have some good skills, and when she puts it together, she really can go out there and handle these women. But I'm interested to see this fight. Don't know if it should be a co-main event fight, though, in my opinion. But it is what it is. And now we will work our way over to the main event of the card. Excited to talk about this fight here. And again, boys and girls, I know we probably got some girls listening too. If anybody's interested in my picks, if you're interested in my pricing, reach out to me, MMAfortuneteller@gmail.com, or shoot me a DM on Instagram, MMAfortuneteller_, or I'm on Twitter, the MMA Teller. And, I could always send over my pricing to you, and, I got exclusive plays I'll send out to you guys. And, even if you guys just want to chat it up about the fights, man, I'm always there. I'm easily accessible, and I'll chat it up with you guys regardless. Tell me how you guys enjoy the card, or, what you guys are thinking during the card. I appreciate every single one of you guys for tuning in, checking out my breakdown video. And let's get right into this main event. Curtis Blaydes taking on Derrick Lewis. I briefly touched upon it earlier. I think stylistically, this is an awesome matchup here. Curtis Blaydes is going to try to use the wrestling game. He's going to try to wear Derrick Lewis out. He's going to throw a couple punches and then shoot in on those hips. Derrick Lewis, this is a guy that really, really needed to be working his takedown defense and his cardio. This is a 5-round fight against Blaydes, a guy that's knocking on the door for a title opportunity, and who's a very well-rounded fighter. I think that Derrick Lewis, if he could stuff the takedowns and make Curtis Blaydes really, really work for those takedowns, I do think that Derrick Lewis can get the knockout here. We've seen it done. We've seen him do it time and time again, where these guys are wearing on him, and he keeps coming at them and eventually gets a big knockout. We saw that against Alexander Volkov at the last second of that fight. We've seen it against Marcin Tybura. We've seen it against, you name it. Derrick Lewis is a guy, man. Forget it. Was able to come back and sneak out that decision against Ivanov, Alir Latifi, Alexey Oleinik. That was a very entertaining fight. We touched upon that earlier. Now, if we're going to be straight up about this fight, I think that Curtis Blaydes is going to be a little bit too much with the wrestling. I think that he's going to wear Derrick Lewis out, with those takedowns, and Derrick Lewis probably will work his way up. I don't necessarily see Blaydes going in there and just smashing him with ground and pound like we've seen to other guys. Derrick Lewis is very hard to control on the mat and has a very, 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 very strong chin. He's very durable. It's hard to finish him. He's a big boy. And, if he does get the finish, I think it's going to be more from exhaustion. Blaydes continuously getting those takedowns to the point where Lewis just gasses out and maybe, he folds up. The last time I can remember Lewis just getting knocked out flush maybe was the Matt Mitrione fight, which is one of the best fights you'll ever see. Run the tape back on that fight. That was just a dog fight from the start and just until the finish. So I don't really think there's too much to talk about in regards to this fight. I know it's the main event, but I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think that Blaydes has to continuously push for that takedown, but he cannot gas out like he did against Alexander Volkov. If you remember, Volkov actually looked decent in like the 5th round. He was still going, trying to get back up, and he was landing shots, and Blaydes looked absolutely exhausted in that fight. So if Lewis can make him work like Volkov did, and there was some rumors about Lewis shedding some pounds here for this fight and being in the best shape of his life. So if that's the case and he comes in like that, it might be a tough night for Blaydes. And we do know if Lewis connects early in the fight, it could be good night for Blaydes regardless. Good night, Irene. As you know, what's his name? He used to always yell. What's his name? He's over there commenting for ONE FC. Comment if you know what I'm talking about. Michael Chavello, whatever his name is. But good night, Irene. But Lewis can easily get a knockout here as well. I think if you're taking Lewis, you're definitely going to want to take him with the finish prop, because I don't see him winning a decision here against Blaydes. I really don't. I think that it's either he gets the finish or he's going to be losing a decision or getting finished himself. So that's where I'm going with that fight here. I'm really excited for this fight. When this fight, when this fight's happening, they're walking out. I don't know if I'll necessarily have money on this fight one way or another. We'll see. But this is a fight that I'll be locked and loaded, man, ready to crack a beer and enjoy the fight. So I'm rooting for Derrick Lewis, but my heart tells me Curtis Blaydes shows up and takes this fight. All right. So that's gonna wrap up the entire card here. MMA live discussion. I'm gonna be doing it again on Instagram. I had some technical difficulties, man, with my audio. I'm trying to fix that all up, but I'm gonna be doing it on Instagram. I thought that was enjoyable. It was a little bit easier to set up and whatnot. I still post it on YouTube for you guys to watch it after. I'm going to clean those videos up too. I'll make them more aesthetically pleasing and I'll polish them up before I upload them to YouTube. So stick with me, all my YouTube people here that want to watch it here. Just work with me. I'm shining all this thing up and polishing things up. And I appreciate every single one of you guys. Please hit the like and the subscribe button if you haven't already on your way out of here. And what else? I guess that's pretty much it. That's it. All right, guys, signing out. The teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller.